Oh, I forgot to update the price list. Now that we have the rear suspension somewhat in place, I forgot to add that on. So we've got the Ranger hanger kit. Ranger hangers. And that was $100. And it's worth $100 and it cost me $100. So that brings the truck value $2,900. Money out of pocket, $1,500. Hey, welcome back to Rust Order Garage. It is the same day as the last video, but a different video. I figured this should be a separate video just in case, there's guys out there not following this particular truck build, but they're interested in putting a gas tank in the back of their truck instead of in the cab where it was from the factory. So this is nothing new. Putting a gas tank in the back of a pickup, taking it out of the cab and moving it to the back is nothing new. It's been done for years. But what I do differently and what I've been doing for years and have shown people is I'm not going to use a Mustang tank. Everybody says, and you'll see this all over, I want to put my gas tank in the back of my pickup truck. And the first response everybody says is, put a Mustang tank in the back. It works. Yes, it works, but is it the best option? Not in my mind. The reason for that is the Mustang tank has a gas filler that ends up right in the middle of your bed floor. Why would you want your gas filler to be in your bed floor? It's a truck. You may have stuff in the bed, right? And why would you want to fill your gas through the bed? Well, I have a better solution. And not only is this solution cheap, but it will work for both carbureted and fuel-injected vehicles. So it's the best of both worlds. And it's a side fill. So the filler for the gas is going to be in the rear fender, not in the bed, which is awesome. No worried about if you've got junk in the bed of your trunk and you're moving it around or spilling gas all over your wood floor in the bed, if you have a wood floor, which something like this will have. So it works out great. So let me show you what I use. All right, here's the gas tank that I got. And let's get it opened up. Just got delivered today. Right from Amazon. I have bought them from multiple places over the years. Whoever had the best deal. Usually it has to do with shipping because big item. So the best deal you can get on shipping is usually the best deal you can get. So let's see if we can get this out of here. Now, denting it up. There we go. What is this? Well, let me get the box out of the way here. This is a 22-gallon tank out of a 1995 Chevy G20 van. And the beauty of this tank, before I even tell you the price, is you can use this, or rather this application, for multiple things. I'm going LS, so I want fuel injection. So I bought this for $19.95. Notice inside it has the tray. That's to keep the fuel around the in-tank electric pump, which this tank was designed to use. Now, if you're using a carburetor, you're building a carbureted truck, you would buy a tank for a just call it to make sure, 1985 Chevy G20 van with a 22-gallon tank. You have to make sure you get the 22-gallon because they had two different sizes. This one is for a 1995 G10 van, G20 van, which is really 1987 or newer. 87 was the first year for fuel injection, but I always be safe and pick a year right in the middle. So for fuel injection, I pick 95. For non-fuel injection, you could pick 85, and that would work just fine. And then the 85 will not have the tray inside for the pump, and it'll also use a different sending unit. Now, this is a side fill tank. See that? Very nice. No more fill to worry about in the center. Now, the other thing with this is, most times if you need a fuel injection specific tank from the aftermarket, it's going to cost you $500. And that's just the way it is. Now, the price has gone up on these. They are now $125 to your door. That was the best deal I got. Now, I was buying these for about $100 to your door. Pretty cheap. The sending unit is now available pretty easily on the aftermarket. The cheapest I got one, I just bought one, $60 on eBay. So we're talking under $200 for fuel tank and sending unit. As far as the fuel pump goes, I'm going to use the fuel pump out of the 2001 Silverado that is donating the engine and transmission. Now, have I installed one of these in a 55 to 57 or 59 truck? Of course not. This is my first Tri-5 Chevy pickup truck. However, I have installed these in both of my 1951 F1 pickups. The F1 pickups have narrower frame rails than these. So I'm sure we're going to be able to make this work. They are, let me give you the dimensions just so you know. So the measurement without the mounting flange, as far as width, is about 28 3/4. Am I on the edge there? It's hard to do that without that. 28 3/4 wide. The depth, call it 19.5. And as far as how deep it is, so maybe I should say this is the depth. It's got an angle in the back, but it's about 11 inches at its deepest point. And then you got to deal with the vapor dome here, which doesn't really matter because that'll be up under the bedwood. So it's not a huge tank, but it's 22 gallons. So it's more fuel capacity than the Mustang tank, plus a side filler. So let's just take a look without doing anything. And you know we're going to have to mount the modifications, but look at that. It's going to fit in between those rails. No issues whatsoever. Oh, first thing I'm going to have to do, obviously, is, of course, more rivets. This cross member has to move. So I got to take the rivets out of this, take the cross member out. I don't know where it's going to be yet until we slide the tank in and see where that's going to line up, because we want to look at see where our filler neck is going to be as well, because we got the leaf spring to deal with, and everything has to fit. So first thing I'm going to do, get the rivets out, of course, add in more rivets. Get the rivets out of that rear cross member and get that rear cross member out of there. And this is going to be the same no matter what truck you're doing this with. And it's going to be the same idea, 40s all the way up. I mean, they all have ladder frames and they're all about the same width. And there's always a cross member right where the old leaf spring perches were. So it always has to get removed and moved backwards. So I'm going to do that first. One rivet out, bunch more to go. All right, rear cross member is out. Now I've got this little cross member here, which is actually bolted in. Now she's out. Okay, preliminary jogging around. Now, you have to think of a whole bunch of different things at once while doing this. First off, I want the gas tank to be removable. So, and removable as in not having to take the bed off the truck or anything crazy. So that means I want it to fit up from underneath and have the flanges pretty much hit the frame rails. That way, when you unbolt the straps, the tank can come straight down and nothing else is in the way, and it's not a problem getting it out. Next thing, the frame rail is going to have to be notched for the filler tube. Now I could cut this off, weld it shut, and make another one in a different place, but I don't think this will be a problem. I've done this before, and actually I've never had a problem. I was just trying to think of different ways to do it, but I'm probably going to just stick with the way I always do it. So I'm going to have to notch the frame, but I don't want to do it right here. I want my filler tube to be back a little bit further. So now this is the cross member that I removed, and I just slid it back. I'm going to notch it. I'm going to relief it back so that this is about 1.5 inches thick, top and bottom, so I can slide the tank back and then see what that gets me as far as room. Okay, after some time of head scratching and figuring out what's what, because every truck's a little different, I ended up basically, it's the same method I've used before, but because of different dimensions, things are a little different. So what I did was I took the cross member that used to be up in, where was it? I don't know, this area, actually. And I had to cut it down. So I trimmed it down to about 3/4 of an inch thickness, top and bottom, and left ends on it so it'll go into the frame. Still have to clean it up. But this way I can get the tank all the way back. Back as far as I can. And the reason for that is I want my filler to be behind my spring shackle, because I'm going to notch this for the filler and then box it so it's strong, but I don't want to cut anything in front of the leaf spring mount that could compromise the strength. Behind the leaf spring is not going to matter. It's not really structural at all as far as suspension goes, but I will box it just to make it even stronger. Now, because I'm doing that, back here, this is where the rearmost cross member mounts, and the bolts would go in here and probably just a nut would go underneath. Well, once I box all of this, I don't think you're going to be able to get to anything anymore, at least get to that nut. Maybe you can through here, but what I'll do is, and I'll verify, because if that works out, hey, that's great, just notice that. But otherwise, what I'm going to do is put a tube inside the frame once it's all together and welded. Then the cross member can bolt with a really long bolt that'll go through the frame, through the tube, and you can do the nut on the bottom here. So we'll see how that goes, but one thing at a time. First, I'm going to just line this up as it should be and put a notch here in this frame rail. Okay, here's how it's looking. That'll work just fine. So a little notch in the frame there. I'm going to clean up that rear cross member, get it welded into place, to re-drill the holes going through here for the rearmost cross member. And I guess I can get in there to get it. I don't know. We'll see. I may just put a tube in there anyway and use a longer bolt, make things easier. But it's definitely going to work. And then I got to add another bar. I'll probably reuse that long one I removed to go across the frame in front of the tank, and that'll be for the straps to connect to. And then the back of the straps will connect to that cross member there. And yeah, I think it's going to work out just fine. The other thing I always keep in mind when you're doing this, and another reason I bring the tank in from underneath, is that the cross members are going to sit on top of the frame, and they only stick up 2 1/4 inches I measured. So you have to make sure this doesn't stick up higher than 2 1/4 inches. Otherwise you'll be shimming your the wood in the bed, which you can do, but I try to make it easy. So looks like it's going to work out. All right, this is all strapped down together just to suck everything up, clamped on the inside, so everything will be tight when I weld it. And that will be the new rear cross member. Okay, here's where we are so far, and it's working out good. So rear cross member is welded in. That's never going to move. One thing that's neat is the piece that I cut out of the top, I can weld it back in. It'll actually fit. Trust me, I can weld this back onto that cross member and just get a little extra strength. Only the bottom that I really need to trim to clear the gas tank. So that's cool. Other neat thing is this little cross member that I removed. I just had to move it back. There was already holes in the frame. Back one spot. And that will be the other mount for the straps. And the straps will attach that rear cross member. Straps are supposed to come tonight, so we'll see if they arrive for tomorrow, because I am done for the day. I'm worn out. So it's time to clean up a little bit. And tomorrow I have appointments, so we'll see what I can get done if I can get back out here. But I'm going to weld that back onto the cross member, and that's probably all I'll do for now. I can box the frame and all that kind of stuff when it gets down to welding all the holes up on the frame and all that kind of stuff, because the next things we'll do after the gas tank, well, we'll get into that. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but tomorrow hopefully we'll get that welded in, get the straps in, and continue the video. All right, it is the next day. Junk clothes are on. We're ready to set ourselves on fire, and we got the last piece of the puzzle for the tank. Here's my knife. So, I usually make the straps for the gas tanks or use whatever set I have laying around, but since I'm trying to do this in a way that you could copy if you wanted to, I don't know if I would want to copy me, but that's up to you. I looked for the absolute cheapest way for gas tank straps, and I found gas tank straps. $15 for the pair. That's pretty good. And yes, there is a pair. Just making sure, because that's a low price. That's cheaper than you can buy some 1-inch wide strap metal and make, unless you got stuff laying around. But $15, part number ST36. Spectra Premium. I think they're for a minivan. Chrysler, no less. So now we got Mopar parts on here, but I won't tell anybody. Nobody will know. And I think they're long enough to do what we want to do. At least I hope so. We're going to find out shortly. So before I put the straps up and see if they actually work, here's where we are in the frame. So I welded the section back in that I cut out from the cross member there. The bottom of it I had to leave trimmed, of course, to fit the tank underneath it. Here's our notch for the filler. This will get all boxed in, but not yet. There's some stuff I got to do behind there that we'll talk about, and you'll see when I put the tank in. Well, I guess I can talk about it now, but a couple things have to be done before I can box this area in. One, we know that the back corner is where the cross member is going to bolt to the frame. So I need to be able to get under here to get to the nuts. Well, rather than try to fish in here with a wrench or something, I'm just going to put a piece of tubing inside here and have a hole on the bottom so you could put a long bolt all the way through. Next thing is, I assume that these holes are for the rear bumper. Once and I don't have a rear bumper, but I think I'll get one, we'll see. But once the gas tank is in, you can't get back here to this area. So what I do is I make a metal plate that fits in here with nuts welded to it and weld that into the inside of the frame. And basically, you then have captive nuts on the inside of the frame. So when you bolt up your bumper or a trailer hitch, you just put bolts straight through the frame into those nuts that are on the inside. So I have to do that on both sides. And then the other thing I did was this cross brace here, which used to be bolted here, I moved it back. There was actually holes in place, just had to widen them a little bit and move the crossbar back a little further. So that will be for the straps. So let's put the tank up in there and see what it looks like. Very nice. Front cross member, I'll drill a couple holes for bolts to hang down off of that side for the straps. And then the other side will hook into that cross member. And that's what I have to figure out because I've never used this kind of strap before, but let's take a look at them. So, never used these straps before. They are pretty thin. Guess that's what you pay for. But one end, obviously, bolt, one end, like that. That's like a hook. So I need something for that to hook into. Let's figure that out. That'll be next. All right, before I cut this, just explain, the T slot is actually not going to be very high. It only needs to be deep enough, or say big enough opening for this to slide into, and then it'll turn and hang on the bottom. So we'll cut it a little small first. You can always open it up, and if not, if we make it too big, we'll weld it up. It's just metal. Don't worry about this stuff. All right, notches are in. I cut them too big at first, so I had to go back and weld them up a little bit. It's just metal, because what I figured out is they only have to be like a slot that one side can fit in. You know, it's like instead of a full T size, you just need enough that they can just get in there and then hang, and then they'll never be able to fall out. So both slots are done. Like that. Now let's check the other side. All right, I put the truck in the air. It'd be a little easier, I think, to show what I'm doing here. I dropped a couple 5/16 carriage bolts into this rear cross member. Tough to video under here. But I got the straps hooked in, curl them around, and they're going to be too long, which is fine. I'd rather have them be too long than too short. So there's where the bolt's going to be. You can see how long the strap is. We'll shorten them, put them in. It's going to work just fine. These straps will now be my go-to straps for 15 bucks. Can't beat it. All right, one shortened strap in. Just shortened this one. Didn't even waste anything. Just cut it, took the cutoff section, plug welded it right back onto the strap where needed. We'll put it in. That's it. That tank is in there, and that's going to work just fine. All right, so let's update the budget with the tank. Let's see, we got our tank. And I'll write sending unit, even though we didn't put it in yet. Total for those items was $185. That's what it's worth. That's what it cost me. So, truck value, $29 plus that, $3,085 out of pocket. $1,685 so far. So I think we're still doing pretty good on the budget. We will see how it goes. All right, that'll be it for rear tank install. I'll get into boxing the inside of the frame when I box the inside of the front of the frame and do all the final frame stuff when the cab comes back off right before we paint it. But that's going to work great, and that is the gist of putting one of these 22-gallon tanks in the back of one of your old pickups. It's going to work out perfectly, especially the fuel injection. It's cheap, easily available, side fill, and it fits. So it's going to work out good. Just remember, when you're doing something like this, another reason the S10 springs work out so well, because they're short. So my gas fill, where I had to notch the frame, is behind the hanger, so it's not going to impact anything structural. If I had to notch it in between the spring hangers, I would definitely box it and possibly add some extra on top just to make up for what was cut. But in this place, it's going to work just fine. I've done it multiple times. It works out great. So that's it for this one. See you in the next one. Bye.